So in this lecture, we're going to discuss how to remove the outlier. And after we remove the outlier, we discuss how to replace outlier with some normal values. So we're going to use a node called a replacement node in SAS Enterprise Miner. So the idea is that after we figure out or after we specify what values are the errors or the outliers in the data set, so you can either filter out the data or you can replace these outliers with some values you want to specify. Okay, so in this replacement node, give you the option to keep the replaced data for the remaining analysis. And make sure we always do the replacement before we impute any missing values. And if on the left-hand side, that's a screenshot of the replacement node. So we have the interval variables and class variables. For the interval variable, we need to specify the default limit methods, just like the one used in the filtering methods. And we also need to specify the replace method or replacement values. So we're going to use the HMEQ data as an illustration to see how can we use the replacement node. So again, we need to open SAS Enterprise Miner, and we'll continue to use the HMEQ data. So we're going to add a replacement node in this case. So replacement node that's available in the modify toolbox. So that's replacement. Just click the replacement. And then connect file import and replacement. All right, and in the replacement node, as I mentioned, you have two options. One is called interval variable and one is class variables. So you can use the interactive replacement editor. You can manually specify the default limit methods, or you can use the interactive editor. So just click these three dots in the replacement editor. And now you can see an interactive replacement interval filter. And from this, you can specify manually what's your limit methods. Okay, so you can use the MAD as a limit method, or you use a standard deviation. So any data outside 3 standard deviation will be the outliers, or MAD will be 9 times MAD outside the media will be the outliers. Okay, so specify this, or you can use user specified range. Okay, so for example, for the age, COH, so you can specify the lower limit as 0, and you can specify upper limit as say 400. Okay, and for the replacement methods, you can manually replace lower replace value. Then that's any value lower than 0 will be replaced by this value. And a value that's greater than 400 will be replaced by this value. Okay, so we just use default one. And let's try this. So that's for the interval variables. So for the class variable, we have a similar option here. You can click the replacement editor. So remember, in our data, we have bad and job and reason. These three are class variables. So the interactive replacement editor for the class variable, so this also gives you option to manually replace values. For example, 0 and 1 and unknown, that's the available class in the variable called bad. Okay. And you can specify your replace value if you want to replace something. So for example, here you also have the frequent count. For the missing value of the job, we have 279, so that's missing. And this unknown, so there's no data set for unknown. And this replacement editor is also useful to handle data inconsistency. For example, if you have a variable called state, and state have Indiana, and also have IN, then we know IN and Indiana all refer to Indiana. So you can replace IN and Indiana with the same value. So this is a way to replace value column to make sure the data is consistent. Okay. And after we replace that, we can run that nodes. So after it's finished, then we can take a look of the exported data. So we can see the difference between the origin data and the replaced data set. All right, so now you see here, for example, the COH, we have manually changed the limit, okay, from 0 to 400. That's our considered lower limit and upper limit. So you can see how many samples has been removed by look at the placement counts. So how many has been removed. And you can also take a look of the exported data. So here on the left hand side, you have imported data. So that's the origin data from file import. And the exported data, that's the data after we run the replacement node. So we can click the exported data. Okay, and then you can see from the training data, that's the only data we have, and you can take a look of the training data. And now you can see we have the original column, bad loan mortgage due, and we also have the new column called replacement, COH, replacement CONO, and so on and so forth. So these are new columns. So if we compare COH column with this new replacement, COH column, we will see some value if outside of our range will be removed for the remaining analysis. So remember our outlier, well, our range is 0 to 400. So for example, so we can sort it by the values of the COH. And now you see the difference. If we sort it by COH from maximum to minimum, so any value that is larger than 400 will be replaced by 400 here. So that's the data after we remove and replacement. All right, so that's the end of the discussion of replacement node.